I'm Eugene W. Emmerich III, author of The Resurrection of the Just, and we're going to do about a 7-part series on the resurrection of the just and the rapture of those that are alive and remain, millennialism and the history of it. Where do these different views come from, and why are people so adamantly opposed to one another? Hopefully people will take the information and check it, like the Bereans, to make sure the facts are correct. So anyways, I wrote this book on the resurrection of the dead because the rapture of the church is part of that resurrection. The dead in Christ shall rise first, and we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. So let me read the description. I'm going to use this as my outline, this book. The resurrection of the dead is a fundamental doctrine of Christianity and is the blessed hope of the believer. Who will be raised, how they'll be raised, and when they'll be raised has always been discussed at length and in great detail throughout history. To quote St. Augustine, "On no point does the Christian faith encounter more opposition than on the resurrection of the body." Because the first teachers of the apostolic doctrine felt it urgently necessary to defend and clarify this doctrine, and because there is so much historical evidence available as commentary, I feel that apostolic and ante-Nicene fathers are an invaluable resource that should be taken advantage of. An effort to correctly understand the doctrine of the resurrection of the just and how it relates to the advent of Antichrist and Jesus Christ will greatly benefit from the examination of these historical documents. How did the first disciples of the apostles understand what Jesus said, and how did they understand the writings of their contemporaries, which became our scriptures? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just go over millennialism and its origins, the different views. I'm not going to get into the different methods of interpretation. If someone holds to a full preterist view, I'm just going to say right now that that's heresy. It's bad news. The church was originally, through the writings of the fathers, we can see that the church was originally what we call classic or historic premillennial. This view was held, is seen in all the writers up till about the time of Origen, and maybe the Alexandrian school started this a different way of interpreting these scriptures as allegorical. In the 200s, or about the middle of the 3rd century, there was an anti-millennial sentiment because they felt that it was advocating some kind of satisfaction of the flesh. Anyway, in the 4th century, after the time of Eusebius, you can see how they started to comment that the people like Papias that held this view were carnal or uneducated. So by the time of the Second Ecumenical Council at 381, there were the church, Orthodox Church, unanimously converted to or started teaching amillennialism, which is very similar, but it doesn't believe in a literal 1,000 years. It believes that we are in that time period now, which is just a long period of time. Then at the time of the Reformation, postmillennialism came about. It was popularized in the early 1700s. And so that is more of a modern doctrine, although we know it was addressed in a Second Helvetic Confession. The Second Helvetic Confession shows that there were people that held this view. Then in the 1800s, John Nelson Darby gave us a dispensational form of premillennialism, which is my target subject. And that's when I go over more Darby's dispensational view of premillennialism. And then there are different variations of these views. A pre-wrath millennialism came about 90. What do we say, 91? Yeah, and was popular, and this pre-wrath millennialism was popularized. So with that said, this can all be verified online or in any library of any evangelical library or Orthodox or Roman Catholic library. All the resources will confirm the information that I'm going to give in the next series of commentaries. Okay.